So I decided to take clay hand building because I really wanted to start it up as a hobby. So before taking the class, I had very little background on ceramics. I did take a general art class in high school. Some things that I've learned in clay hand building that have expanded my knowledge. We have learned a lot of different surface techniques and building techniques, like what different clay bodies entail, how to work with them, different things that you can experiment with, measuring and textiles and stilts, and what's the difference between a textile and a stilt, and glazes. Something that I really enjoy about hand building so far has been making connections with people in the class. We all bond on our difficulties and our triumphs. My favorite part of the whole process is seeing what my pieces look like fresh out of the kiln the first time. The second time, I feel like things are a lot more prone to breaking or coming out a different color than you expected, and there's a lot more room for disappointment. So the first thing, universally, is always going to be research, figuring out what exactly you want to do, what message exactly you want to deliver, and then once all of that is done and you kind of have your sketch and you can kind of go through the motions of how you're going to be constructing your piece in your head, another universal step to start is, of course, wedging the clay. After that, I think that's kind of where I personally hit my rock in every project that we've done. It's kind of like, okay, and now how do I start constructing the first piece? There's so many different ways I could go about it, and that's the beauty of clay. It's like working with it. It's like you never know until you're in the middle of it or even towards the end of it how it's going to turn out. So we're doing a project right now called Bob We Move. It's basically going to be everyone's going to create a large structural piece that entails some kind of story. I had already done narrative work in the past, so I wanted to talk more about identity and like my background. I wanted to talk about kind of my experience. I'm probably going to be using like more extrusion and relief work of creating texture and attaching 3D objects to my piece, at the surface of my piece, to create this contrast in power dynamics. One thing that I feel like is also a common theme that I always kind of am drawn to in my work, whether that's 2D or 3D, and something that I also incorporated into my last project, is the sense that something is wrong. So the last project, the Everyday Memorials project, was a narrative piece where we basically had to craft various different objects that tell a cohesive story. My piece was kind of touching on the role that tea time played in the Georgian and Regency eras of British social circle. My piece was kind of trying to picture scandal and how greatly it is associated with speaking about it at tea time. It was time period based, but also the whole aspect of spilling the tea resonates a lot with our generation. Something that I feel like this class has challenged me in, and something that I've taken away and learned that I can definitely apply to other areas of life, has definitely been taking myself into consideration. Especially because as a social work major, a lot of my work is like research and reading and writing and kind of things like that, and human connection. And I feel like connecting with people through art and through creating in that sense is such a different experience. Experiencing what it's like to give myself room to make mistakes, but also it not being the end of the world that something isn't perfect or someone didn't like the way that I used that color or something of that sort, helps me not only in my other classes but also in just like being kinder to myself.